We expected growing pains for the new look New Orleans Saints, and we got them. We got all that and a little bit of lagniappe for you on today's episode of Locked On Saints.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, Who Dat Nation and Who Dat family? I am your host, your friend, Ross Jackson, New Orleans native, your New Orleans Saints expert and credentialed member of the media covering those New Orleans Saints as a Saints beat writer over at LouisianaSports.net. And on today's episode of Locked On Saints, I'll tell you some of the things that the Saints did on Sunday's loss against the Arizona Cardinals that they might need to do more of as the season continues on. We'll take a look at why scared money don't make money, some of the curiously conservative decisions by Kellen and the New Orleans Saints in their Week 1 home opener. And we'll kick everything off with the growing pains that we expected to see from the New Orleans Saints. We'll go over what those growing pains were and how the Saints can grow from them as they proceed forth here throughout this new transition season. We got all that coming up for you on today's show. We appreciate you very much, whether it's your first time or your next time being here with us this time, making us your first listen and being an everydayer here on the show, which is a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL. You get $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. The New Orleans Saints, we knew we're going to see some growing pains here early on in the season. And so what I want to do now is take a look at those growing pains and how the Saints can grow from them. Because as we've said before here on the show, one thing that you will not find here at Locked On Saints is us overreacting to the losses that we predict. We're not going to be doing that. I said that this team might be a team that wins maybe 5 games here in 2025. And so I'm not going to overreact when it comes to losses that I expected and that I already predicted. We're just not going to do that. It's not about being right. And it's not about the Saints being bad. It's just about the fact that we understand the reality of where this team is, where a lot of stuff is new and a lot of the building blocks are young, including a first-time head coach at just 37 years old. So we're going to dive into all of this today, but we're going to keep it pretty level-headed well, I was going to say concise, but Ross Jackson is anything but concise. So I want to start off with Spencer Rattler's rhythm, because I think this was the first thing that I thought that I saw growing pains-wise that I thought was really interesting. And this isn't specifically about Spencer Rattler, but we're going to use Spencer Rattler's passing numbers to kind of look at some of the growing pains from around the offensive procedure, I'll call it. So in the first half, and look, this is pretty similar to something that we saw last year too. Strong first half or strong second half, and then whatever the opposite half is, a weaker half there. And so we saw that here again on Sunday for the Saints and Spencer Rattler up against the Arizona Cardinals. First half, he was 8 of 11 for just 65 passing yards, but that's okay. It's all that you needed, a little bit more efficient in the run game in the first half. 87.5 passer rating, completed 72.7% of his passes during that first half. So a really pretty strong first half, got into a rhythm, kind of got things built up a little bit, got the ball out quickly, all that. I think he hovered around 2 seconds when it came to time to throw in the first half. But then getting into the second half, he went from completing 72.7% of his passes to completing just 54.3% of his passes, going 9 of 35 for 143 yards and then a 65.1 passer rating. Now, the reason why I point this out is because I think one of the biggest growing pains for New Orleans is knowing that you can get your young quarterback into a rhythm and then learning that once he's in a rhythm, you can start to open things up a little bit more. What seemed to have happened was because of the lack of attacking downfield and even the lack of attacking in the intermediate area. I have some numbers on that we'll get to here in a little bit. But even in the sort of lack of attacking, specifically in the middle of the field over the intermediate area, the Saints sort of felt like they were keeping everything close to the line of scrimmage into the perimeter. And it was as if they got Spencer Rattler into rhythm in the first half, and then instead of allowing that rhythm to grow into some big plays and some explosives and things like that, the Saints just kind of kept going back to those rhythm plays again and again and again. Now, there were a few plays to where they did have downfield concepts built in that Arizona did a very good job defending. You can look back at the interception that wasn't when Spencer Rattler targeted Rashid Shaheed down the left sideline, 50, 60 yards downfield, however long it was, and then ended up getting intercepted by rookie cornerback Will Johnson, but then called back because of a defensive penalty being called on Arizona. But outside of that, the Saints didn't really push the ball downfield at all. So that's a little bit of taking what the defense gives you, but I also believe a little bit of conservatism from the New Orleans Saints offense and the New Orleans Saints head coach, with the real opportunity to take the rhythm that had been established early on in the game and then open things up as they continue to move forward. I felt like the Saints didn't do that very successfly. The other thing that I feel like they didn't do very successfully was game management, particularly toward the end of the first half. Kellen Moore sat on 3 timeouts at the end of the first half. And look, this is going to be one of those growing pains. Kellen Moore is also a first-time head coach. And while he's not making decisions on game management all by himself, he has guys that are helping him with all that on the coaching staff. This is still something he's going to get more comfortable with over time. And so when I talk about the sitting on the touchdown, on the timeouts rather, at the end of the first half, I don't necessarily have an issue with the Saints going out there with 27 seconds left and 3 timeouts, running the football to see if something pops. And then if something did, they could have called a timeout with nothing really happening there. They just kind of went on to the locker room. I don't mind that as much, but I don't think that they should have been in that position in the first place, because I think they should have used the timeouts when there was over a minute left on the clock while Arizona was in scoring distance. Take those timeouts after that, save yourself some time. Either they get into the end zone, they don't, whatever it might be, but then maybe you've got 40, 50 seconds left on the clock with no timeouts, as opposed to 29 seconds left with 3 timeouts that you don't intend to use unless you meet a certain criteria with the first play of that 29-second, possible drive at the end of the first half there. And so what I would have done, or what I would have imagined would have been done, is taking those timeouts while Arizona still had possession. That way you can get the ball back with some time. I don't think the Saints should have been in a situation where they had all 3 timeouts and only had 29 seconds left on the clock, but that might just be me personally. Another growing pain for me was just sort of the lack of explosive plays that were generated. We kind of discussed that a second ago, or an element of that. But even going back to the run game as well, Alvin Kamara had a nice, nearly 20-yard run, a 19, 18-yard rush for a touchdown, everything. But then outside of that, they didn't really have anything that broke open big time. And so I think that this is another area where the Saints are still kind of trying to learn like where they can hit their home runs, how it is they get things done. The blocking and protection on the Alvin Kamara touchdown was outstanding, and we just didn't see more of that throughout the game, cashing in or creating some of those big time, more explosive plays, 15+ yard runs, 20+ yard passes, however it is that you choose to define that. And then finally, this one's obvious: penalties, right? 13 different penalties. This is going to be one of those growing pains, and 7 of them were pre-snap penalties, we believe. And so with all of that taken into consideration, the tempo ended up creating some issues for New Orleans, as well as just the getting this new offense under their belt-ness of this game, false starts, things like that as well, with some cadence changes. So some things for the New Orleans Saints were just simply growing pains, but they are solvable, they are treatable, they are actionable moving forward. Coming up next, what I want to dive into is scared money not making money. And the New Orleans Saints, one thing that will not allow them to improve any of this is remaining too conservative. We got that coming up for you next as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints is brought to you by friends over at PrizePicks, the easiest and most fun way to play daily fantasy sports. All you have to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections over on PrizePicks. You can turn your takes into real prizes, all in less than 60 seconds. I love PrizePicks, and I especially love some of the deals that they get done for you as well, including their max discounts. Next week, Travis Kelce, in terms of his stat projection, is just going to be a half of a receiving yard. So if you think Travis Kelce can get a receiving yard in his game with the Kansas City Chiefs, that is a max discount for you. Then you add in your other 1 to 5 projections. If you get those right, you could be walking away with some pretty nice prizes. So you download the PrizePicks app today and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after you play your first $5. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. Today's episode of Locked On Saints brought to you by the Upside app. You're still paying full price at the gas pump? Well, you can stop that now by downloading the free Upside app from Apple Store or Google Play, whichever is appropriate to you. And don't forget to use our limited time promo code touchdown, because what you're going to do is download that app, head to the pump, and when you use the app there, you're going to earn cash back. But with promo code touchdown, you'll get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. You can make up to $300 a year from buying the gas that you already need on the commutes that you're already taking. You can cash out anytime as well to your bank account, PayPal, or e-gift cards for things like Amazon and other brands as well. So don't let this offer drive on by. Download the free Upside app and use that limited time promo code touchdown for a limited time 25 cents per gallon bonus. That's promo code touchdown. Offers vary by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions. All right, family. The New Orleans Saints learned on Sunday that scared money don't make money. Can't be too conservative out here in these NFL streets. If Sunday Night Football didn't teach you that, I don't know what else will. That was an exciting game between the Bills and the Ravens. But look, I think that there were a couple of things that the Saints did throughout this game that kind of, I don't know, demonstrate a bit of the conservative nature that just comes with a lot of newness. And so I'd like to see the Saints kind of figure out ways to work their way out of this. So let's just break down a couple of different things. We'll start with the passing game. Because the passing game on offense in particular opens up the most opportunities for you to go out there and be aggressive, be aggressive. And so for New Orleans, of the opportunities that they took for 20-yard passing plays downfield, right? So we're talking 28 yards through the air from the line of scrimmage on down. The Saints only had 5 such attempts and completed only one of those passes for just barely over 20 yards. So not a lot of emphasis on getting the ball downfield. Not that you need to take a bunch of those shots, but even when they took them, they simply weren't there for them because they took 5 shots down there, but only one of them was completed. More important to me, though, is that looking at between the numbers and then 10 to 19 yards downfield of the line of scrimmage. So we're taking a look at between the numbers, the middle of the field, in the intermediate area. The Saints had only 4 passes thrown to that area in the middle of the field. And this is an offense in Kellen Moore's that typically with Kellen Moore's offenses, we see a lot of opportunities being taken to attack that area of the field with crossing patterns, confusing kind of route concepts and things like that create some congestion and confusion for opposing defenses. And so as I went through and I kind of watched the broadcast view of the game, I didn't see a lot of those crossing routes. We'll take a look at it again once we actually get the all 22 and I'll get a better look at it. But in any case, and we'll take a look at how many crossing routes and stuff like that I saw here in just a moment. But in any case, I did believe that New Orleans did not, on the offensive side, take advantage enough of the intermediate, middle of the field areas and in the deep area, and specifically to the deep middle of the field areas where there were no attempts taken throughout, except for 2 20-yard passes exactly at 20 yards. But I'm talking about downfield beyond that. Now, the Saints don't have to be a team that lives and dies by the deep ball, right? They can do this stuff to where they dump it off and, get these guys out in space and all that, but they're going to have to do a better job moving forward of keeping defenses honest, because the defense was giving them everything they wanted underneath, but then not allowing them to capitalize on it either. So in order for you really to be able to capitalize on what you can do underneath, catch and run opportunities, yards after catch, all that other stuff, you've got to make them play honest. And you've got to make them play honest by not being one-dimensional. And you don't want to be one-dimensional in the passing game by only going short or majority going short. You also don't want to be one-dimensional in your offense at the same time where you're not running the football and you are throwing the football. And that was certainly the case with 35 pass attempts in the second half alone. You look back to the opening game between the Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles, Jalen Hurts barely threw the ball downfield, but there was a run game that kept things honest because of going up against the Dallas Cowboys as that opposing defense. And so you need some other complement there. And unfortunately, throughout this game, New Orleans didn't consistently have that complement because they never really had the deep downfield game, but then they also didn't have the rushing efficiency that they needed in the second half. This was something that Kellen Moore spoke about after the game that I misunderstood a little bit when he talked about how they kind of went away from the run game in the second half, not because of a point differential. I thought they went away from that because of the down and distance situations. Often a lot of penalties on first or second down, which ended up backing them up, and some second and 15s and stuff like that. where you don't necessarily get the opportunity to run the football. So for me, it was like a down and distance situation more than it was score. But really, the other thing that he highlighted was that there wasn't enough efficiency on rushes on first down. So I went through and I took a look at that. The Saints in the first half ran 7 times on first down for 39 rushing yards. That is a 5.6, 5.57 yard per carry average. So a lot more efficient there. Here's where the efficiency did go away. And this is where I misunderstood. I thought when he was talking about efficiency, he was just talking about overall efficiency. We had Alvin Kamara run for 4.1 yards. You had Kendre Miller run for 4.8 yards, but it wasn't necessarily specifically that. It was more so about setting the tone with the run game on those first downs. And so while they averaged 5.6 effectively, roughly, yards per carry on first downs in the first half, they averaged just 2 yards per carry on first downs in the second half, rushing 4 times for 8 rushing yards. Not great, Bob, not ideal. And it didn't stop there, too. It was an overall efficiency in terms of the difference between the first half and the second half. These are just running back stats that I'm giving you, by the way. I'm not including quarterback stuff. So that 4 for 8, that's 7 for 39. That's all running back only. That's without Spencer Rattler's couple of runs in each of those two halves. And I want to speak a little bit more of the Spencer Rattler run game here in just a moment too. But in the first half for running backs alone, 12 rushes for 75 rushing yards. Really solid there that's for all of them. That includes quarterbacks as well. So really solid there, 12 for 75. That includes a couple of runs by Spencer Rattler. Running backs in the first half as a whole, first down, second down, third down, doesn't matter. But running backs in the first half, 10 rushes for 67 yards. That's a whopping 6.7 yard per carry average. That was absolutely going for them in the first half. But in the second half, running backs ran 8 times for just 11 yards. Just 11 yards. And so you would like to see that be a little bit stronger in the second half. I do think that Spencer Rattler has a couple of plays that he'll look at on tape and go, man, I really should have tucked it and run it there. But I did think that he got a little bit more comfortable and aggressive utilizing his legs in the second half. The stats certainly reflect that. And certainly he reflected that in his media availability following the game as well. I think that there were some opportunities there maybe for him as he's rolling out he's trying to, get the ball downfield and keep his eyes up, but also could have tucked and run. I think, though, that maybe it just looks different for me watching it from, the press box or the bird's eye view than it looks for him. And so I'll be interested to see sort of later on in the week when we speak to him about how he felt that he handled that first game, how much more maybe he wanted to run or maybe how much less he wanted to run or whatever it might be in those situations. And so I think there was some just like conservative nature over on the offensive side as a whole that I think comes with the territory with being a brand new team, brand new coach, brand new quarterback, all that. But I do think that that's one of those next pieces that you'd like to see the New Orleans Saints grow as they move forward throughout the rest of the season. All right, up next, let's take a look at some of the things that they could do more of, including those crossing routes, because the amount of crossing routes that the Saints ran could almost be counted on one hand. Let's get to that next as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints is brought to you by friends over at Game Time, the best place to go to pick up tickets for your last-minute events, like maybe your favorite football team. You can go ahead and download the Game Time app. It'll allow you to be able to take advantage of all of the great deals that they have. You always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price that you see is actually the price that you pay. I love the transparency of the Game Time app. I pulled up Game Time just to check and see what things were looking like around the NFL and found some amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite NFL teams for as low as $100. I like the Game Time app when I'm out of town because it's just everything's just sorted by city. You just go on there, click the city that you're on, and take a look at what they have available for you. And they've got a ton over on there. It's not just sports. Download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. That's promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Let's get it, Who Dat Nation. The New Orleans Saints did some things on Sunday that I'd actually like to see, even though it was a loss. them do more of in a way that I think could help them here throughout the 2025 season as they get through these growing pains, as they get through sort of some of the things that, again, they look exactly like we expect right now, a team that's trying to gel. And that's fine. I cannot stress that enough. This is fine. This is not massively disappointing in terms of where the New Orleans Saints are. In fact, I think that they did some good things. And we highlighted in yesterday's episode, our post-game episode, about why it is they actually kind of impressed in a way. And so now we're looking at some of the things that we saw that you'd like to see them do more of. We appreciate you very much for being here. Don't forget to come and check us out every Monday through Friday over on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network at 10 a.m. You could also catch our other Locked On Louisiana shows, Locked On Pelicans, Locked On LSU, Locked On SEC over there as well. We appreciate you being here with us as we are here every day. It feels like, and then some. So I was talking about crossing routes earlier. I'd like to see more crossing routes. It's the Kellen Moore bread and butter, right? Get these guys working across the field from one side to the other, challenging these opposing defenses laterally, all those other things. From what I could tell by rewatching the broadcast view, I'm recording this Sunday night, late Sunday night, technically Monday morning, but just haven't gotten all 22 yet. And so just looking at the broadcast stuff, I saw 6 dropbacks that included crossing routes. I cross-referenced that with our friends over at True Media, which will allow you to be able to kind of filter things out on a play-by-play basis, the type of routes that are being run and things like that. And then they have a filter for crossing routes. And so I put 1 to 10 crossing routes on a play. That way it covered the entire range of possible things that could happen and then some. And 6 dropbacks came up for the New Orleans Saints. And so you'd certainly like to see more of that. They ran a little bit of it, but 6 dropbacks on 46 total passing attempts. Yeah, 46 total passing attempts and 6 dropbacks. Like that's not a lot of those crossing routes. And so wanting to see a little bit more of that get involved and intertwined. I'll have to go back and look at those. Those might have been the shot plays. There were times where the Saints called stuff up and tried to dial it up deep, but Arizona did a really good job defending and taking away some of those. So crossing routes, definitely something we'd be looking for because 6 is just simply not enough. Attacking downfield once Spencer Rattler gets in rhythm. We kind of highlighted that already, but just one of those things that you'd like to see them do a little bit more of. Again, just 1 of 5 in passing attempts, 20 plus yards down the field, get the quarterback in rhythm, and then be able to take advantage of those shots that you can take downfield. More of the intermediate middle area of the game, but then also continuing to utilize those perimeter passes at the boundary to create some catch and run opportunities. One of my favorite plays that we saw on Sunday was a play where Brandon Cooks was lined up tight to the line of scrimmage, came up off of the line as if he was going to chip the rusher, allowed the defender to slip past him, and then he just worked his way on kind of this, almost like this little flare out to the outside where Spencer Rattler was able to hit him as he replaced where the pressure was coming from. And then Brandon Cooks had some green grass to go and pick up some additional yards as well. And so keeping some of that stuff going in terms of being able to find those middle of the field, or excuse me, those edge of the field outside the hash moments with space, but finding those on the inside between the numbers could be massive for New Orleans as well. How about more blitzing with Alontae Taylor? Alontae Taylor didn't play a ton of snaps, played under 30 snaps in this game. And I think a big part of that is because he had been injured for the majority of the preseason, I'll say, effectively the entire preseason. And so because of that, he didn't really get a lot of the sort of last bits of work that were done over the course of training camp from a on-field, out there producing type of a situation. It's one of the reasons why we didn't see Alontae Taylor on the outside in base packages, which we expected for him. But I think with him missing so much time, having been injured, and only having just come back to practice on Wednesday where he was limited, and then upgraded to full partway through the week, that I think that those things didn't really allow for him to get to a point where he was able to be massively overutilized when it came to those blitzing opportunities. But man, when they dialed up the one that they needed on that 3rd and long, and he got home on Kyler Murray forcing the punt that allowed the Saints to have that 2-minute drive there, 2-minute drill, you could really see the value of Alontae Taylor and what it is that he brings to a defense, what it is that he brings to you as a playmaker, what he brings to you as a potential game changer as well we certainly saw that on Sunday. Now, more of that, and Alontae Taylor getting into the backfield. I think the Saints could stand for more of their run game too. More of their run game, even if it is starting to struggle. I get that they were kind of in an inefficient bout in the second half there, but just keep it going. Like, stay dedicated to it, especially while you're not being blown out. You don't have an insurmountable deficit between you and your opponent, and the defense is holding up. Saints defense only allowed 3 points in the second half. This feels like recent years where that stuff would happen, but then the offense never really got the opportunity to close the gap. And so you wonder how much more the New Orleans Saints could have potentially done had they built a rhythm with their run game and put themselves in position to go out there and get some of that extra stuff done. And then finally, just back on the defensive side, just the blitz overall. I thought that Spencer Rattler handled the blitz well on the offensive side, 6 of 8 for 48 yards, completed 75% of his passes there. But when they blitzed Kyler Murray, he was 5 for 7 and had a couple of sacks, but had a 114.9 passer rating. So real opportunities there to potentially get him uncomfortable that didn't necessarily make him uncomfortable. So figuring out how to be able to maximize that. And maybe that's where Alontae Taylor comes in as well. All right, coming up on tomorrow's episode, we'll do an analytics deep dive, and I'll give you all the numbers you need to know from Sunday's loss. We appreciate you very much, as always, making us a part of your day, part of your routine, for saying yes to me in the show. If you see me, please say hi. And if you need anything else around your New Orleans Saints in between these episodes, make sure you follow me on your favorite social media at Ross Jackson, NOLA. Hit me up. Let me know how the family's doing, how you living. Let me know how you momming them. And trust you, that nation, I'll holla at you.